what's going to happen to the people who have been thinking about or feeling like, oh, I'm not happy where I am, but they choose not to do anything still?
It's like going against the tide. You have to go to the side. You can't go directly back in. Just like with Mercury retrograde, everything's got to shift. Everything's got to be different. This is the time to be nimble and to try something different.
So, hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking Possibility. I'm your host, Tracy Stein. As always, I'm so happy to be here with you today. I am so excited to have my good friend, Leslie McGuirk, back on the show. You may have seen her when she was on before talking about how to navigate and master when Mercury is retrograde. Today, we're going to revisit that topic because there's a whole lot going on that I'm totally not equipped to address, but Leslie is. But really quickly, she is a prolific and successful author. She is an accomplished and established artist. Leslie is an astrologer. Leslie, I believe you are a medium as well. I have to tell you, my husband and I both had readings with Leslie, and they were uncanny to the point that I've listened to them, probably half a dozen times.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for telling me that.
It's great. So if anybody's thinking about doing it, check out Leslie's website. We'll give you that information in a moment. But Leslie, without further ado, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be back and finally get to catch up with you and fill everyone in on this very, very strange time that we're in right now. This month of April is absolutely the most difficult month that we've had in a long time. It kind of ranks up there with when COVID first arrived, when everyone was sort of like in this state of shock, like what is this? Or we all had to lock down. I mean, that was so crazy. We had no point of reference for what was going on then. And it's kind of a lot like that this April. Probably not quite as intense, but it's like second place for stressing people out. Have you noticed how many people are having a tough time right now?
I've noticed the doo-doo show. I think it is now. So it's just, it feels like everything that you have said and people said about when Mercury's retrograde is on steroids. Communications that go awry, things that get lost in the mail or emails that get lost, electronic stuff. 100%. I hope this actually records.
Yeah, we've already said it may freeze up, and we'll blame it on Mercury retrograde. But don't forget that if you were born during Mercury retrograde, which only 20% of the population was, that those people like myself, this is our good time.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, but no, it's not really great. It's not really great because, Tracy, then when it goes direct, we feel for most of the year the way you feel all the time when it's retrograde. So that's kind of lousy if you think about it.
And I have to tell you, by the way, I keep forgetting to give you appropriate credit for this, but I'm going to do it now. You said something last time we spoke that has stayed with me. It was the most important Mercury retrograde assessment or advice or observation I've ever heard. And when you said it, I felt like, oh, I could have had a V8. Like, why didn't I realize that? You said that it's when Mercury, of course, appears to be going backwards in its orbit, right?
Right.
But that we need to embrace times when we need to stand still or go backwards, because imagine you can't get out of your driveway or out of your garage if you can't go in reverse.
Right. And then it's like, wait a minute, this is great. We can get out of the garage. So when people think, oh, it's doom and gloom, don't sign a contract, don't fly on an airplane, that is not the way you're supposed to be dealing with this. It just means you're supposed to review, maybe go a little slower. You can't do things quickly during Mercury retrograde or you're going to get slapped. So for me, I live because I was born during Mercury retrograde for 80% of the year. I have to live like that every day of my life. So for me, it's not a big deal. I have to review everything. I can't do anything with a snap decision. If I do, I get into big trouble. So I'm constantly having to be in reverse. And that's one reason why I'm a good astrologer and a good teacher, because I do things differently. I find a new way. So if you're driving backwards, you got to be really crafty because you've got to figure out a maneuver in that gear. So it's trippy when you're a Mercury retrograde person, and if you have some in your life, you'll notice they're a little different.
Well, I have to tell you, your insights have been So incredibly helpful. One of the many reasons why I'm so excited to have you chatting today is because this has been such a doozy. It's not just that Mercury is retrograde now. There are a whole bunch of other things happening at the same time, right?
Yes. Do you want me to explain what's going on? Well, I'll use metaphor. I don't like using astrological language because it means nothing to anyone. So, so if people want to, even if you don't know a lot about astrology, you can go on many websites. You can get your chart drawn up, and you can look and see if you can find, especially for that great North American eclipse we just had on April 8th. That was at 19 degrees of Aries. So that's astrological language for just telling us where the position was. So anyone out there who's got planets around 19 degrees of Cancer, Capricorn, or Libra, any of the cardinal signs, they were going to feel that eclipse as if it was like a Star Wars laser beam coming in and then just bursting stuff open. And for many people, it doesn't feel comfortable, but it's not bad. There's a time to break through, and usually breakthroughs are not usually easy. So that's why people don't feel that comfortable with them. But some people had the eclipse hitting 19 degrees, making beautiful soft aspects to their chart. So those are the people who are like, this was so cool. I want to go travel around the world and be around another one, because they had an invigorating effect from it. But no matter what is going on in your chart, even the animals, like in the zoos, did you hear that they were all very strange during the time of the eclipse? Because we are influenced by them, whether we want to believe it or not. You know, the moon goes up and down with the tides go up and down according to the moon. So we have this system that we live in, and these weather things, whether it's Mercury retrograde or the big eclipse on April 8th, it's just weather, and it's there to help us navigate. So if we know that it's coming and that we're supposed to be breaking through to another level, then you can look at whatever's going on in your life and saying, all right, breakthrough can also be a good thing, because otherwise you stay stuck. So this month of April, it's about you are going to get unstuck whether you want to or not. And you're going to have to break your patterns whether you want to or not. So I would suggest you do it on your own and not allow other things to break it for you. Because if you take the energy, whatever's coming through, and dance with it in the way that it wants you to dance, then these Mercury retrograde or the eclipse or the other big one that's happening this month is on April 20th. And this is for anyone who's got planets in Taurus at 21 degrees. So this is the first time this has happened since, I think it's every 14 years that it occurs. So it's not that common. But Jupiter, the planet of good fortune, is going to be right next to Uranus, the planet of unexpected events. So it's like putting Santa Claus next to a creative, wild, mad scientist, or like Santa Claus next to a pinball machine. So it's like, and it's going to be, now, is that great or is it bad, pal? I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, because I have my moon and my Mars right at around those numbers. So I'm getting a direct hit in the area of my career. So I can't imagine what's going to happen in the next week or two. So I'm open, and I'm going to expect it's going to be good, like a giant breakthrough. I don't know what it is, but obviously something's cooking. I don't know if you've noticed, I'm doing a lot more reaching out, building more community with the people who need the information that I have to share with them. And I've always kind of stayed away from doing that because I was so busy just helping people. I didn't want to be one of those people who's constantly sending emails and trying to get you to sign up for something. And I just feel like it's like a calling for me, or something that I'm here to help people. So it felt weird to try to be a salesperson too. But then I've changed my mind, and I've realized, wait a minute, there's only one of me. I'm not going to be around forever. I really want to teach this to other people so that you can have the astrological information to know these weather patterns without having to talk to me or anyone else. And how useful, Tracy, to know so you can prepare. Like, you would never go on a road trip from New York to California without looking at the weather or figuring out your route. Well, astrology is just exactly the same. We're going to tell you the weather, and we're going to tell you the best route to go for the best outcome. That's all that astrology is. And I want people to be able to use this on their own and have it as something, it should be part of everyday conversations that people have within their families, within their businesses, everything, because it's so incredibly accurate. And And it's not fortune telling. It's just describing what is, describing like a giraffe has this kind of design to it, and a gerbil has this. And people are just like every other animal in the animal kingdom. We're all so different. But if you don't accept what it is you are and work within that system, then you can get into trouble. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And you were making me think it's kind of like when you order something like a product and it comes and it's got a little manual with it and an overview of how it works and how to best use this product and what not to do or where to use caution.
That's exactly what it's a system of describing your design. And we all have a design to us, just like everything else in nature, whether you're a mushroom or a seashell or a rhinoceros's horn, everything's got a design to it. So what makes us think we're any different than anything else in nature? And there are tendencies, like Jack Russell has a design, it's different than a Doberman. So they're both dogs, but they're very, very different. And same thing with humans. So a Cancer person or a person who has a lot of water in their chart is going to be very, very different than a person who has a lot of fire elements in their chart. So
100%.
Yeah, so it's just like, I'm just hoping so much all the time that people will start to look at this as one of the most helpful tools to have to live life and not to use it as fortune telling. And it's only predictive in the sense that when a weatherman tells you it's going to rain, you might want to bring an umbrella, but it's not going to tell you what exactly is going to happen when it's raining. It's just the rain is coming.
And it gives you a heads up, and it gives you an idea of what sort of, like you said, what gear you might want to be focused on. And I have to say, honestly, even though, I'm fairly, more than fairly new agey, if some people would say, or open-minded. And when I had my reading with you, I wasn't sure what to expect. And I thought, let's see. It was so uncanny. It was so specific. And I know that also your intuitive abilities come into doing these readings. So it's not, I don't want to say just that you're looking at the chart. The chart's incredibly involved and in depth. But even talking about, the periods of time and what would be the kind of overriding theme. And I thought it was very helpful for even, being more prepared.
Yes, and also having compassion for yourself, because if you have a difficult aspect in your chart, it's not your fault. That's what you came in with. So that's huge. That's a big deal. Like I had a client yesterday who, she's a badass. She's strong. She's successful. She's like a warrior princess, and she's more geared for fighting and for the cause and being strong than she is being a little dainty flower baking cookies at home. So she always probably felt a little bit badly that she wasn't that type of mother. But guess what, Tracy, that's not who she is. She
Right.
is this very strong. So we will have to learn to be what we're designed to be and realize where we have some, not failings really, but just places where we're not as developed, and we're not supposed to become masters of the things we're not good at. You're supposed to focus on what's your highest calling. And for her, it was being this crusader. Go for it, girl. You keep being the badass. We need people like you. So that's where take pride in what you are. And if you're an armadillo, be glad you are one, because they're useful for what they're designed to do. But if you try to make yourself into something that you're not, then you're just going to have a miserable life and feel guilty that you're not something else. You've got to learn to like what you are.
No, it's well said. And I want to move back for a second to what you were talking about for this time period, because clearly it's affecting different people differently.
Yes.
Talking about good fortune, and say it again because I'll get it wrong, but on April 20th.
Yes.
How should what might people expect? And will that vary by sign?
Yes. That depends on. So I'm not a Taurus. My sun is in Cancer, but my moon and my Mars are in Taurus. So if you just use it if you're a Taurus sun sign and you're born towards the middle and the end of the Taurus time period, then you're going to get hit pretty strongly with this energy. And it's giant. It's like the mad scientist gets bigger and bigger. It's Steve Jobs was born with this aspect, and he took Uranian things, which is computers and technology, and made it big. He made it into this Apple thing. That's what this is. So is that good or bad? That's good. But to burst that out into the world. And by the way, do you know why it's called an Apple computer?
No, I don't.
This is a great story. So Steve Jobs was with the other guys in their garage or wherever they were working on it. And he was eating a Macintosh Apple at the time. And they were frustrated because they couldn't figure out what to name the company. And he said, gosh darn it, if after lunch we still don't have a name, let's just name it Macintosh Apple. So what was so brilliant about this and why I'm telling the story is that if he had gone to a marketing group or focus group to see what's the best name for this computer company, I can promise you they would never have accepted this name for a computer company.
No.
So the name Apple Computers and Macintosh, having a Mac, we don't even call it Macintosh anymore, it's just a Mac. It actually was born out of a very real, natural thing that was occurring at the moment they were trying to name it, which was he was eating an apple. And you think about the power of Apple and like history with Adam and Eve and everything else. So, and Johnny Appleseed, there's like a whole history of apples. And so now this guy's named something that no marketing person would have ever agreed with, but he had the courage to do something really big and very different. And that's what this aspect is like for all of us. It's like our time to burst out and change the pattern. The most important thing I can tell people for this month is if you're stuck in a rut and you always eat the same thing for breakfast and you always drive to work the same way and you always walk the dog the same path, I would suggest you start doing things differently. Even brushing your teeth with your left hand or just sitting in a different location in your house to eat breakfast. Just constantly think of that you're a healthy pattern breaker, that you're ready to break new ground. If you have that intention when this aspect hits on the 20th, which by the way, who are we fooling? We're feeling it right now too. It's this whole period. It's just exact on the 20th of April, 20th to 21st, because then the numbers are exactly the same. It's 21 and 21. So it's very intense for people, but I want to think that it could be very exciting in a good way. I can't wait to talk to you afterwards and tell you what happened to me because I'm getting a direct hit. So I don't know what it means, but it's going to be cool.
Absolutely. Now, I related to everything you're just saying, I've heard people talking about between the eclipse and between what's going on with this Mercury retrograde and the other things you referred to, that it's a time for significant change. And my question to you for people listening is, because I know there are people there's always somebody who's thinking, should I stay in this relationship or not? Has this run its course? Should I stay in this job or not? Should I stay in this career or try something different? Should I, change the dynamic in a relationship with a family member or not? Because all of these things come with a whole bunch of pluses and minuses and stresses. And a lot of times when we feel that way, we do nothing because we choose the path of not doing anything. What's going to happen to the people who have been thinking about or feeling like, oh, I'm not happy where I am, but they choose not to do anything still?
Not a fan of suggesting that because from my own personal experience, whenever I have made that choice, and I've done it many times in my life when I was younger, I'd be like, I'm not going to let the astrological thing tell me what to do. I'm going to do this the way I want to do it. And every time I've done that, instead of working with the energy and I fight it, it's like going against the tide. You're just going to get, with a rip current in the ocean, you can just get pulled out to sea. You have to go to the side. You can't go directly back in. Just like with Mercury retrograde, everything's got to shift. Everything's got to be different. This is the time to be nimble and to try something different. So if you're thinking of separating from someone, give it a try. It doesn't mean it has to be for forever. Just try it out. Nothing. That's the thing with people with these decisions. Everyone thinks they're making this heavy, big decision. Guess what, folks? Those big decisions are not the big ones. If you make a list of all the coolest things or good or bad things that have ever happened in your life, it's usually some tiny little small decision like, oh, I think I'll walk down this street or I'll take that plane instead of that plane. Like it's not a big decision. So these big decisions are not where it's happening.
And sometimes even, because I know people get worried even when they're unhappy, but it's like, I can't make a decision because the decision is so frightening. I think people forget that it's not necessarily always, sometimes it is one or the other. Yes or no, I'm in or I'm out. This is continuing or it's over. Sometimes it's making a radical decision to have a different conversation or change the parameters of a relationship or go ask your boss for a raise or apply for something that's somewhat different from what you're doing, but still builds on your other skills. So, change comes in so many forms, but people, what you're saying, are going to be feeling it regardless. It's going to take more energy to stay stuck.
Yes. So why not give it a whirl and try in little ways to break the pattern? Because any step forward is still a step forward. And that's what this whole thing is about right now. The other big thing, not only do we have that big North American eclipse that happened on the 8th, but we've got this big thing with Santa Claus next to the mad scientist on the 20th. That's big. But we've also got Pluto, which is definitely the most intense planet because it's all about transformation, life and death. And it takes 20 years for it to go through a sign. So it was in Capricorn for 20 years. And so just recently on March 23rd of 2023 is when it went into Aquarius. So that's like brand new. Let's change everything. And this is yet another indication of starting fresh. Everything's got to be different. Everything's got to be new. And it's one reason why a lot of things that are in the news right now, a lot of people don't want these changes to come. That's why we're going back to that in Arizona, the Comstock Act or whatever from the 1850s. Like this is, who would have thought in 2024 we'd be talking about something that from the 1800s, but that's exactly how scary it is for people to change because where we're headed, the way the world is going to be, this is not something that's going to look like it used to. And we need to shift into this new thing, which I don't even know what it will be like. For me, I'm such an environmentalist and animal lover that the thing I'm most worried about is our planet, because without a planet that's healthy, none of us are going to be healthy. So sometimes it just amazes me how people forget to think about the earth and our connection to it and taking care of the water and the trees. And like here where I live in Florida, I live on a big nature preserve, but all around this area, there's so much development and all the animals. What do you think happens when they lose their habitats? Then they have to find other areas. So they start moving around and then all those patterns and ways of living get shifted, not just for the humans, but for the animals as well. So there's so many things going on right now. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. We're not out of the woods with these massive changes until 2026. It's going to get easier then, Tracy, but between now and 2026, we're still going through it. But right now, this month of April, this one's rough because we got Mercury retrograde on top of it. And then Saturn is in Pisces. So think of Saturn as being the taskmaster drill sergeant. And he's like an Olympic level coach. And he really wants us to change and to move into a new direction as well. And he's in Pisces, the fish. They want to swim away. They don't want the structure. They don't want to be put in a Saturn kind of environment. So that's not really comfortable either. So anyone who's got a lot of planets in Pisces around 15 degrees, you're going to feel like a little goldfish that's been put in a little baggie and you're stuck in this little baggie for a while as you try to figure out how to live a new kind of life. So it's just all over the place, everywhere. And if you fight these energies, which are every single one of them is saying, would you try going backwards to get out of your car? Would you try to think about moving your goldfish? Maybe it's just temporary. You're going to be in a little baggie. Maybe you're going to end up in a much bigger, giant aquarium if you just trust that you're going in the right direction. It's like everything is just making people feel unsafe for good reason. Who no one really likes change, right? I don't think we as humans tend to like it.
I know. You're totally right. And I'm having all these thoughts as you're speaking. So let me ask you, I'm going to start here with Pluto having moved into Aquarius in March. What signs will feel better with that? And which signs will feel less good? And you don't have to go through all of them unless
So the ones that are going to feel the best are Capricorn because they've been dealing with Pluto for 20 years. So they're like, oh my God, I can't believe he's finally gone. Like, that's so intense what we just went through. But then they'll look back and think those were very meaningful times of their lives. And I always tell people, whenever you're upset about something that's going on with the astrological weather, always remember there are a lot of people out there who live with that energy every single day of their life. So if you happen to be a person born with Pluto right next to your Capricorn sun, that means everywhere you go, you bring Pluto energy with you, the planet of death and transformation. So you're constantly like a butterfly, turning into a caterpillar, turning into a butterfly over and over again. It's just your life. It's what you do. I'm a Plutonian. I've had to get used to it. So it doesn't bother me as much now, but boy, did I fight it when I was younger. I did not want what Pluto was asking me to do, including being an astrologer, because this is not a profession that I ever wanted. I was happy writing and illustrating children's books, Tracy.
You were great at it.
I was good at it and they did well. And all of a sudden I'm like, why would I want to do this where I'm going to be talking to total strangers, telling them about things that they might not want to hear? But actually, that's not the case. It's exactly what they want to hear, because when someone sees you for the first time in your whole life with compassion and understanding and not criticizing you, it's just describing the way you're designed, it's probably one of the most loving, freeing things that you can have is to get an astrology reading, as long as it's with someone who knows what they're doing. Otherwise, they can do a lot of damage. I just read about a woman whose astrology teacher told her that she had a werewolf moon or something. I don't even know what that is, and said, we all need to pray for you because your chart is so hard. And I thought, who would do that to somebody? That's like getting mad at an armadillo because it looks like an armadillo, like as if she had anything to do with that.
Or like going to a therapist who just tells you all the things that are not great. And then it's like, and then hands you the bill instead of saying, well, let's see what we can do with this.
Right. Well, that's why I'm a big fan of mechanical ways to shift people. I think my go-to things are EMDR therapy and somatic healing, and also family constellations, which you've done family constellation, right?
Yeah. I mean, amazing. So helpful. Life-changing.
Have you only done one or have you done more?
Did one, but it was really so eye-opening and very healing. Patricia Hoyle, I'm giving her a shout out.
Yes. So she's great. And I probably send 80% of my clients to her because there are certain things that I'll see, like pretend you're a car, you need a little tune-up. All right. And you need someone to help you tune up your car because we're not mechanics.
Again, like I'm like a huge advocate for a multifactorial or a multidisciplinary approach. And that can include alternative types of things as well. And to me, that's always given me the best outcome. Like I'm not a person for whom one thing alone usually is the thing. And I think it's just because we're so complex and multifaceted as people. Yes. Leslie, I want to go back to something, and there is a selfish reason for asking you. But Pluto in Aquarius, if you are Aquarius, what does that mean?
Okay. So I got off track there. I didn't answer your question. So if you're born in the early stages of Aquarius, so those people are going to really feel it right now, and they're not going to like it because they're not used to this energy. Pluto is the planet that wants to boil you alive, get you all tender and soft so that you can morph into something else. So if you're in the early stages of Aquarius, you're going to be feeling it now. If you're like my sister's born around February 13th, that's too far into Aquarius. She's not going to feel it yet for a couple more years. So it's the ones that are the end of January that are, if your sun is and if you're born around the end of January, you're going to feel it more.
Okay. And in terms of people who are, say, Taurus or Aries, maybe even close to Taurus on the 20th, they're going to really feel some big change around what areas of their life specifically? Career, money?
We don't know unless we're looking at the chart in terms of the area. But what you can do is you can draw up your chart and look at figure out what Taurus looks like and see if it's anywhere near the number 19 or 20 degrees.
Okay.
And wherever Taurus is in your chart, there's 12 houses, 12 sections. And you can even look up, what the 12 sections represent. And then you can find that Taurus and say, oh, it's in the area of day-to-day work life. That's where this big Uranian Jupiter conjunction will be felt. So you have to look at someone's chart to get that detailed. But that's why I've also started an astrology club. Are you a member of it? I don't know if you are. I think maybe you are.
You invited me and I accepted. Thank you. I still have to actually go on and look, but I think it's great. Talk about your astrology club.
So it's free and it's a way for people to ask questions or get support just to talk about astrology things. And then on the 15th of every month, I do, so this Monday, tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern. So next month, it'll be May 15th at 5 Eastern. And it's free. And it's just a way to basically talk with me and get tidbits for what's coming up. And then I'm also starting another Astrology 101 class on April 21st. If anyone's interested in that, they can email me, because that's my real passion right now is I want to teach more. I want people to learn how to understand their own chart so that they can read the weather patterns for themselves. And Tracy, I can get somebody after 8 hours of instruction where I was after 20 years of studying astrology. And the reason why I can do that is because learning astrology is identical to learning how to play the guitar. Can you learn how to play the guitar from reading a book? No.
So much.
That is really, really hard. The only way you get to learn an instrument or guitar or anything is to actually play it. So what I do is I get my students to play astrology with me. And then you have a physical experience of it. You see it working. And then after 8 hours, you will know enough to be able to have the foundation to read any chart. So you could look up the chart of your wife, your children, your boyfriend, whatever, your boss, or before you hire anybody, check them out. Even babysitters, I'd probably check out the charts of my babysitters if I had little kids, so you want to know, how do they think? How do they deal with emergencies? What kind of personality do they have? Are they trustworthy? And you can see these things.
Jason took a class with you years ago. I think I gave it to him as a birthday gift. And he said, and he's not somebody who would even have thought to pursue any, sort of learning opportunity in astrology. And he really enjoyed it. He had such a great time. He was really excited when he came back.
Yeah, because I make it fun. And I don't use astrological language. I use just storytelling and metaphor. So like when I said April 20th, imagine Santa Claus and a crazy mad scientist are going to making some big thing. I don't know what it is, but it could be really, really good somewhere in your chart. Well, let's see what happens. But if you don't know how to read a chart, you don't know where it's going to land. And unfortunately, I can't tell people without looking at their chart, but I just can tell them how to do it. So at least they have that information.
So related to that, and I think this is accurate, but you tell me, we see these published horoscopes, which are always interesting to read, but they really are just talking about one small or one significant, but only one aspect of people's charts. So reading the daily horoscope is not going to tell you a lot about you as an individual compared to actually getting your chart done.
It's really, really not accurate. You're actually better off, if you're going to read the horoscope, you're better off reading for your rising sign, not your sun sign. Do you know what your rising sign is, Tracy? Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay. Well, I can tell you later. You need to look at your rising sign because those horoscopes are based on the idea that your sun sign is where your rising sign is, and that's often not the case. The odds of it being the same are 1 in 12.
So, Leslie, I want to shift gears for a second because I want to ask you about something that you mentioned earlier that I think will be of interest to a lot of people and certainly to me. You and I were just talking about my dog, Loretta, who is sleeping, hopefully for the rest of our interview on a little doggy bed in here. We've had quite a rough ride during this last few weeks. How have animals, our pets, been responding during this Mercury retrograde, eclipse, and more period? This rough time.
That's a great question. I don't really know. I mean, I have 3 pets, but I haven't noticed anything different. But I do think they pick up on the energy. They know how to read our energy. I know my dogs are definitely very heightened during a full moon. They drive me nuts. They go out back and bark at all the wildlife out there, but they don't do it at any other time, only during a full moon. So whenever people say they don't believe in astrology, I said, well, you should just watch nature and see if there's not an influence.
But
There's something going on. Those full moons, you know what they do? They pull on all the molecules, the water molecules that are in our body or in the soil or in the oceans, whatever. So there's something that gets activated, and that's a scientific fact. That the moon is very involved with the gravitational pull, and that's we're getting a pull too. So I don't really know how to answer your question about the animals though.
okay, I was just thinking because you had mentioned earlier about the eclipse. The eclipse.
With the zoo. Yeah, I just knew that the zookeepers were noticing that the animals were like running and hiding and doing weird things when all of a sudden in the middle of the day it got dark. So that's all I knew. But I just think it's interesting that
Oh yeah.
at that tsunami, the elephants knew to go running up the hill. And when I lived near the ocean in Vero Beach, every time we had a hurricane, I would notice like weeks and weeks before we ever even knew that we were getting a storm. I noticed that all the a bat would be in my garage, or fire ants would be living in my front door, and they were coming in. And every time I noticed a lot of animals trying to get in my house, I thought, uh-oh, something's coming. And then another really cool thing that happened when I was living there, this Sahara red storm was coming. The sand from the Sahara Desert in Africa was coming across the ocean, and they said it was going to land in Florida. And you would notice all of this red dust all over your cars and all over everything. What I realized when that was happening, all these spiders decided to make these giant nests or webs, not nests, all over the place. I'd never seen so many webs in my life. And guess what they were doing? They were setting up to collect all the delicacies that they were going to get from the African safari winds that they don't get to eat all the time here. So it was crazy. And they knew. How did they know that they were coming? But the animals know a lot. And even clams and oysters, I forget which one it is. They open and close according to the cycles of the ocean and the tides. And yeah, and if you move them to another location, they still do it based on if there was an ocean there. So it's very interesting.
That's wild. That's so wild. So, Leslie, other things that, is there anything that I didn't ask that we should be talking about with regard to what's going on? And we'll definitely get to your how people can reach you and how they can be part of your astrology club.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing I'm doing that's really fun, and anyone can watch this. It doesn't cost that much to participate, but I started this thing called Mystery Guest where I have total strangers. I don't know who they are. I don't see their face. I don't have their name. My assistant arranges all of it. And then with my advanced students, I'm literally looking at a chart and reading the chart in real time with no practice at all. It's just, I'm right there in the moment with this person. And it is so just like, as everyone who takes this Mystery Guest series, they all say it's better than reality TV. It's pretty fun and pretty cool. So it's a great way for people also to get a chart read at a very, very, very discounted rate because I'm using this as a teaching method. So that's something else for people. But I do want to tell people a couple things. We also have Mercury's going direct on April 25th. So we're almost through the worst of it for those of you who are not fans of it. And the other times it's going to go retrograde, so you can just put this in your calendar, are August 4th through August 27th, and then November 25th to December 15th. And that's it for the year. So just good to know. Again, it's like saying this is when the weather might get a little funky if you are a Mercury direct baby. And then what I wanted to tell people about this time right now, all of these big planetary shifts, like ending a 20-year cycle, or this hasn't happened since 1944, this hasn't happened in 14 years. A lot of this is all compressed right now in this month of April. And it is frightening. And if I didn't have astrology knowledge, astrological knowledge, I would be probably really agitated and flipped out. But because I know that what this weather is what's supposed to be happening, I can be with it in a much healthier way. And that's why I want people to learn astrology so that they can be more at peace with whatever's going on in their life. Like I once had this woman, Tracy, who was a very evolved spiritual teacher, very, very wise woman. And she had the worst astrological aspects I've ever seen for a human being. And during this time, it was probably like 20 years ago, she was a mess. And she couldn't understand, like, I'm such a spiritual person. I'm the one who gives advice to anybody, and I can't figure out how to be okay with what's happening to my life. I said, you're not crazy. This is awful. This is a really bad time, and it's going to end, but you're in the middle of it right now. And I helped her get through that. And we joke about it now because it literally, that was just one heck of a bad storm. And you have to realize that right now, if you've got a bad storm, it will pass. But if you know that it's a storm, you can sort of just say, okay, it's not my fault, just the way it is right now.
And prepare.
And work with the energies. So if the energies are trying to get you to shift and you're resisting shifting, think about your car. You're in fourth gear and your car is straining and straining, but you're terrified to put your clutch in neutral so that you can get into fifth gear. Because if you're in neutral, guess what? You have no control. So you're freaking out, but you've got to shift because otherwise you're going to strain your car. You're going to get injured. You're going to injure the car, I should say. So shifting is not easy, but for sure, that is the theme for this April. For most of us, it's to absolutely shift.
Yeah. And I mean, that's life, right? And even the difficult times, there are times that are stressful or just things that we're like, oh, it feels more effortful than it needs to be in my mind. We learn and grow from all of these things. Like the easy times are great and enjoyable, and they're times for us to kind of rest and restore. The challenging times are going to come no matter what, and we need to just find a way to grow in them.
Right. So when I explain astrology, I use music as a metaphor too. I feel like we're all born with a musical score, and I'm just teaching people how to listen to their musical score and like it. Because sometimes if you're classical music and you don't like classical, then we got to get you to like it. So got to train you to get comfortable with the way that you're designed. But in music, if you had to listen to drums every single day of your life, you'd go out of your mind. All right. But in an orchestra or for a piece of music, without drums, you don't have a beat. So you need them, but we don't want it to be the thing that takes over. So the tough times in life are like drums or cymbals. They punctuate our life. They make the point. And we're living in a giant drumming percussion segment of life right now. And it can't all be flutes and harps because that's not what the month of April is like at the moment. And if you're going to fight that, you're going to have a tough time.
So I just thought of one more question, and you don't have to answer it because I realize this could be a whole other episode. We are building up to, and I know we have to be very delicate in terms of how we talk about anything political, just because the world is so tense and polarized, but we have an election coming up this year, fairly significant one.
Huge.
Astrologically, in terms of the overarching energy of the country around that time. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely had a chance to look. So it's going to be a nail biter. It's going to be very, very intense. But on that particular day, Biden actually has better aspects, and Trump does not have an easy time this whole period. So I think it's going to be really close. And but I think in the end, I think because of what Biden has afterwards too, it looks like there's some golden aspects. It looks like he's feeling successful and good. And then I thought, well, maybe that means he's not president. He's relieved. I don't know, but that's how I interpreted it. But I do think what's going to happen is that no matter what, there are going to be a lot of people complaining that it was rigged and fake and this isn't right. And we're going to go through that dance again like we did last time. That's what I think is going to happen.
So no relief from that tension for a little while longer.
I don't think so. I think it's the theme. It's still there. And I think until we get through November, whatever happens, we're just in this giant, messy period where the forces that want to change and move forward are not making people who want things to stay the same very happy. And so we've got this big divide, and you can't blame people for wanting things to stay the same. It feels comforting and it feels safe and it's what they know, but it's not moving with the energies. And eventually the energies and Mother Nature is going to have the final word anyway. So might as well, like I say, why fight it?
And of course, I said that was my last question, but I have one more relatedly. The country. So the United States, I guess the birthday would be, what will we say?
July 4th, 1776. That's what you would do.
We would pick. Okay. So do we have an astrological chart for a country?
Yes. Now, I'm not a big expert on that because I don't know. I guess that's the birth date of a country, July 4th, 1776. And I think that's what most astrologers use. And what I've read about it is that this whole thing is just our country is going through a massive, recalibration, and we'll have to see where we end up on the other side. But it's the change, the desire to change is big. So I think it's good that we pay attention. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, and I don't really like predicting the future, although I did predict the COVID thing coming. I didn't know exactly what it was. I just said I know it has something to do with the element of air, and that life as we know it will be over. That's basically what I said. That's all I knew. I knew it was so big. I know this thing on right now, it's going to peak on April 20th. I know that's big too. I don't know, big good, big bad. I don't know. It's just big. Could be a little bit of both. And then the election, it's like a nail biter for sure, all the way to the bitter end. That I'm pretty confident in. Who's going to win? Like I said, I think, I told you who I thought would win, but, who knows? People have free will. They can do whatever they want. These are just my attempts to read the patterns. That's all.
That's so helpful, Leslie. Leslie, where can people find out more about your offerings, free and paid, your readings, your classes?
So the best thing to do is to go to my website, which is Leslie, Leslie McGuirk, MCGUIRK.com. And on there, you can hit the contact button and just write and say, look, I'm interested in your astrology club, which is the free thing. We can send you the link. It's on Facebook. And I also have the Astrology Wisdom Academy, my school for teaching people how to read charts. And then I'm starting a brand new thing. I didn't even mention this, where I'm going to be selling little bite-sized lectures on different topics. So let's say you have a narcissist in your family. I have a whole hour just on looking at the charts of narcissists. Then I have got another hour just talking about sibling rivalries. A lot of times, two sisters don't get along. I'm going to explain to people how to find that and what it looks like and what to do about it. Because for me, I'm all about how do you make it better? I don't want to just describe it. I want to explain how do you make it better. I do a whole thing on fathers, a whole other one on mothers, how to look for how a mother is in someone's chart. Because some mothers do a lot of damage to kids and some mothers are great. So how do you tell? So anyway, that's my way of teaching. I want it to be simple and fun, and I want to make it user-friendly and not all this gobbledygook astrological language stuff, because most people don't have the time to become technicians. I'm not a technical astrologer. I'm an intuitive astrologer who is creative and likes to share how to use this tool for everyday life. And I want it to be super accessible and quickly digest it so that you can get practicing with it right away. The other thing you can do is just email me at info at lesliemcguirk.com, and we'll be happy to send you all this information.
That is awesome. So Leslie, this all sounds incredibly interesting. I am going to make sure I put your website information in the show notes, but thank you so much again for coming and sharing your expertise. And
so nice to see you. I wish it was in real life, but hopefully that will happen soon.
Most definitely. Well, this is another episode of Unpacking Possibility. If you enjoy the show, please do remember to like, share, and follow. Leave me a comment. And until next time, as always, be well.